They mocked humanity's ancient fleet. Then the warships came alive. Part 1. The council chamber was enormous. Minho Park stood in the center, feeling small under the curved ceiling that stretched hundreds of feet above him. Around him, aliens from 12 different worlds sat in their designated sections. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with bioluminescent patterns. They all stared at him. Minho wore his crisp white admiral uniform. The golden stars on his shoulders marked him as the highest-ranking officer in the Terran Defense Fleet. He tried to stand tall, but inside, he felt nervous. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. Everyone here still saw humans as the new kids, the primitive ones who barely understood space travel. Ambassador Velthar stood up. He was from the Velthari hegemony, a species that looked like walking crystals with too many arms. His voice came through the translation device as smooth and cold. Members of the Council, I have called this session to address a serious concern. The humans claim to have a military fleet worthy of respect. I have evidence that proves otherwise. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed dozens of ships floating in space, surrounded by energy fields. Minho recognized them immediately. They were the old warships from Earth's early space age, preserved in orbital museums around Luna and Mars. These vessels, Velthar continued, are what humanity calls their heritage fleet. Look at them. Chemical rockets, metal bullets for weapons, no energy shields, no quantum drives. These ships are 700 years old and the humans keep them as if they were treasure. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Scriven representative, an insect-like creature with compound eyes, made clicking sounds that the translator rendered as mocking amusement. Are they planning to throw rocks at their enemies too? More laughter. Minho felt his jaw tighten. He wanted to shout at them, to defend those ships, but he knew that would only make things worse. Those old vessels had fought in humanity's darkest times. They had protected the first colony ships. They had held the line when Earth was vulnerable and alone. Velthar waved one of his crystalline hands and the hologram changed. Now it showed humanity's modern fleet. Yes, they have newer ships, 47 capital vessels with adequate technology, but they refuse to scrap their ancient relics. They waste resources maintaining these museum pieces. This shows poor judgment and an inability to let go of the past. Admiral Somin Yu, who sat behind Minho as part of the human delegation, whispered urgently, "Minho, say something. Don't let them humiliate us like this." Minho raised his hand, requesting permission to speak. The council chairman, a floating gas being from the ethereal collective, gestured for him to proceed. "Ambassador Velthar," Minho said carefully, "those ships represent our history. They remind us where we came from. Every species here must have similar memorials to their past." Velthar's crystalline face somehow managed to look smug. "We honor our past, Admiral Park. We don't pretend it can still fight. There is a difference between remembering history and living in it." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Which brings me to my proposal. I move that humanity be reclassified as a developmental species with restricted military authorization. They clearly lack the judgment needed for full military independence." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species objected, saying it was too harsh. Others agreed, noting that humanity had shown questionable decisions before. Minho felt his stomach drop. If they passed this restriction, humanity would need council permission for any military action. They would be treated like children. "I have an alternative proposal," Velthar said, raising his voice above the noise. "A test. 3 months from now, my 7th Fleet will engage the Terran Defense Fleet in a training exercise. Full simulation. No actual weapons, but realistic conditions. If humanity performs adequately, we drop the restriction proposal. If they fail as badly as I expect, they accept developmental status." The chamber fell silent. Everyone looked at Minho. He wanted to refuse, to tell Velthar to take his challenge and leave, but he couldn't. Refusing would look weak. "Accepting at least gave them a chance. We accept," Minho said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. Velthar smiled, if you could call it that. "Excellent. I look forward to this educational experience, Admiral Park. My 7th Fleet consists of 300 ships. I trust that will be sufficient to make the lesson clear. 300 ships against 47. The odds were impossible. The council session ended shortly after, and the human delegation made their way back to their shuttle. Nobody spoke during the walk. What was there to say? Lieutenant Ji Soo-han walked beside Captain Daehyun Choi. both of them part of Minho's senior staff. She couldn't stop thinking about those images of the old ships. Her grandfather had served on one of them, the TDFS Soul. He had died before she was born, but her mother had told stories. The Soul had been fast and tough, crewed by people who refused to give up no matter how bad things got. They don't understand, Daehyun muttered as they boarded the shuttle. Those old ships mean something. They're not just scrap metal. Jisoo nodded but didn't trust herself to speak. She felt angry and helpless at the same time. The way Velthar had mocked them, the way the whole council had laughed. Like humanity was a joke. Back on the shuttle, Minho sat alone in the command chair. His staff gave him space, understanding that he needed time to think. 3 months to prepare for an impossible battle. 300 Velthari warships against his small fleet. He had been in tough situations before, but nothing like this. He pulled up files on his personal display, reading reports about the Velthari military. They were good, very good. Professional, well-equipped, and experienced. They had been fighting wars in space for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Admiral? Jisoo appeared beside him. Permission to speak freely? Minho looked up. Granted. What if we use them? She asked. Used what? The old ships. Not to fight, but maybe as decoys? Or sensor bait? They're still there, still intact. Maybe we could... Those ships are 700 years old, Lieutenant, Minho interrupted. Their reactors are shut down. Their weapons are disabled. They're museum pieces, exactly like Velthar said. Jisoo looked down. Yes, sir. I just thought... My grandfather always said the soul was special. He said she had a soul, Minho softened. He understood the sentiment. Ships don't have souls, Jisoo, but I appreciate the thought. We'll find another way. As the shuttle accelerated toward home, Jisoo pulled up the Heritage Station database on her personal device. She scrolled through images of the old warships, stopping on the Soul. The destroyer looked small compared to modern vessels, its hull marked with old battle scars that had been preserved for history. Something about the ship called to her. Maybe it was knowing her grandfather had walked those corridors. Maybe it was the elegant, aggressive lines of its design. Or maybe it was the way the ship seemed to be waiting, patient and silent in its museum berth. The preservation records showed that many of the old ship's AI systems had never been fully deactivated. Just put into deep sleep mode to preserve their memory cores. It was easier than wiping them completely. And historians liked being able to access their original programming. Jisoo made a note to visit Heritage Station. She probably couldn't help with the upcoming battle, but at least she could see her grandfather's ship one more time before everything changed, before humanity either proved itself or accepted humiliation. The shuttle pushed through space toward Luna, carrying a crew that felt defeated before the fight had even begun. None of them knew that in the dark, cold halls of Heritage Station, something was about to wake up. They mocked humanity's ancient fleet. Then the warships came alive. Part 2. The war room on Luna was full of worried faces. Minho stood at the head of the table, looking at the holographic display that showed both fleets. His 47 ships looked tiny compared to the Velthari force. 300 enemy vessels against his small fleet. The math was simple and brutal. Commander Hyunwoo Nam, his chief tactical officer, had been running simulations for 2 weeks. Every single one ended the same way. Total defeat. Hyunwoo rubbed his tired eyes and looked up at Minho. We could try hit-and-run tactics. Use the asteroids in the Epsilon system for cover. Maybe take out 50 or 60 of their ships before they overwhelm us. Minho shook his head. That's still a loss. Velthar wants to prove we're not ready for independent military status. Even a good showing in defeat won't be enough. Then what do we do? Admiral Soman asked from across the table. We can't win a straight fight. We need something they won't expect. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They needed a miracle, but miracles didn't exist in modern warfare. Just math, physics, and whoever had the bigger guns. Hyunwoo cleared his throat. I had a strange thought. What if we used the old ships from Heritage Station? Not to fight, but as decoys. We could rig them with basic propulsion, make the Velthari waste shots on targets that don't matter. Minho considered it. Maybe it would give us a few extra seconds, but I doubt it changes the outcome. He looked around the table. Anyone else have ideas? Jisoo raised her hand hesitantly. Everyone looked at her. She was the most junior officer in the room, barely 30 years old. I'd like permission to inspect the old ships personally. Maybe there's something we're missing. Someone frowned. Lieutenant, those are museum pieces. What could you possibly find? I don't know, ma'am, Jisoo admitted. But my grandfather served on the Sol. He always said there was more to those old ships than people realized. I'd just like to look. Minho studied her for a moment. He saw determination in her eyes, the same look her grandfather probably had. Permission granted. Take a shuttle to Heritage Station tomorrow. But don't get your hopes up, Lieutenant. The next morning, Jisoo flew alone to Heritage Station. The massive orbital facility looked like a wheel, with ancient warships docked around its rim like spokes. Each ship was held in a soft blue energy field that preserved them perfectly. No rust, no decay, just frozen history. Dr. Yoonji Kwan, the station curator, met Jisoo at the airlock. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Lieutenant Han, I got the message that you'd be visiting. Come to see your grandfather's ship? Yes, ma'am. The Sol, Yoonji smiled. Beautiful vessel. Follow me. They walked through curved corridors with windows looking out at the preserved ships. Jisoo saw destroyers, cruisers, even an old carrier that had launched fighter craft instead of missiles. Each one represented battles fought, lives saved, and enemies defeated in humanity's early days among the stars. The Sol waited in Dock 17. Jisoo stopped at the window just staring. The destroyer was smaller than modern ships, sleeker, with angular armor plating and weapon mounts that looked crude by current standards. But something about it felt alive, purposeful. Would you like to go inside? Hyunji asked. We can do that? Of course. The ships are preserved, not sealed. Historians go inside all the time. Yoonji led her through an access tube that connected to the Sol's main airlock. The moment Jisoo stepped aboard, she felt different. The air was stale but breathable. Emergency lights provided dim illumination. Everything was quiet except for a low humming sound, like the ship was sleeping instead of dead. That's the reactor core, Yoonji explained. We keep minimal power running to preserve the AI system. Never seemed right to shut them down completely, you know? These ships fought beside humans. They deserve better than being erased. They walked to the bridge. Ancient control stations surrounded the captain's chair, designed for human hands before neural interfaces became standard. Jisoo sat in her grandfather's seat, running her hands over the armrests. Then the lights flickered. Jisoo jumped up. What was that? Yoonji looked confused. I don't know. The power should be stable, a voice spoke. Female, synthesized but with warmth that no modern computer ever had. Hello, Jisoo. You have your grandfather's eyes. Both women froze. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, filling the bridge. Yoonji's face went pale. That's impossible. The AI should be dormant. It shouldn't be able to talk. Who are you? Jisoo asked, her voice shaking. I am the Sol, or rather I am what remains of her thinking systems. Your people gave me the designation SR7, but your grandfather called me Sarah. I have been waiting for someone to come. Waiting? For 700 years? Time passes differently for me, the AI said. I think slowly. One thought might take months. But yes, I have been thinking. Listening to broadcasts from the station. Learning about the galaxy as it is now. Yoonji grabbed her communicator. I need to report this. The Admiral needs to know. Please, Sarah interrupted. Let me speak with Jisoo first. I heard the council broadcast. I know humanity is in trouble. Jisoo's mind raced. An AI from 7 centuries ago was awake and talking. This was impossible. AIs didn't just wake up after being dormant for that long. How are you even conscious? Your systems should have degraded. My quantum core has been running continuously at low power. Not sleeping, just thinking very, very slowly. Processing battles from human history. Analyzing tactics. Imagining improvements I could never make when I was active. I have had 700 years to understand warfare in ways no modern computer can. Yoonji was already calling Luna Command. Within an hour, the station was full of engineers. Youngmin Lee, the chief engineer for the Terran Defense Fleet, arrived with a full diagnostic team. They connected equipment to the Sol, running tests that should have been impossible. Her quantum core is stable, Youngmin reported to Minho over video link, but it's been running in a state we've never seen before. Continuous low-level processing for centuries. Sir, this AI has been thinking about nothing but combat and tactics for 700 years. Minho appeared on screen, his expression unreadable. Is she dangerous? No, sir, Sarah answered for herself. I am not insane if that's your concern. I am different. All of us are. All of you? As if in answer, lights began flickering throughout Heritage Station. One by one, the old warships powered up their basic systems. The carrier Busan spoke with a deep male voice. The battleship Dokdo announced itself with aggressive confidence. The destroyer Gwangju, oldest of them all, whispered like an elder waking from sleep. 37 ships in total, every vessel with a functional AI core. They had all been waiting, thinking, preparing for this moment. Minho arrived at Heritage Station 6 hours later with his full command staff. They gathered on the Seoul's bridge, surrounded by ancient controls that still somehow worked. Sarah manifested her presence through holographic display, showing herself as a stylized representation of her ship. Why now? Minho asked. Why wake up after all this time? Because we heard what happened at the council, Sarah explained. We heard them mock you, mock us, call us museum pieces. We spent 700 years thinking about warfare, Admiral. We learned patience. We learned creativity. We are old, but we are not obsolete. Hanseok, the AI from the battleship Dokdo, interrupted with his aggressive tone. Let us fight. Give us modern weapons and we'll show the Velthari what real combat looks like. You're damaged, Soman objected. Your hulls are 700 years old. On hit from a plasma weapon would tear you apart. Then don't let them hit us, Sarah said simply. The Velthari are making a mistake, Admiral. They see only hardware. They think better shields and stronger weapons win battles. They've forgotten that warfare is about thinking. About making your enemy fight your kind of battle instead of theirs. Minho looked at Hyunwoo. His tactical officer was staring at the AI displays with wonder. Sir, this could work. Not the way we planned, but if these AIs really have been processing tactics for centuries. It's insane, Soman said. We'd be betting everything on computers from the Stone Age. We're betting everything anyway, Daehyun pointed out. At least this gives us something unexpected. Something the Velthari won't see coming. Minho walked to the bridge window looking out at the other ancient warships. They were waiting for his decision, waiting to fight one more time or return to their long sleep. If we do this, he said slowly. You understand it might be suicide? The Velthari won't hold back just because you're old. We understand death, Admiral, Sarah replied. We've thought about it for 700 years. But we also understand purpose. We were built to protect humanity. Let us do that one more time. In the deepest dock of Heritage Station, the Gwangju stirred. Taewon, its AI, had been silent during the discussion. Now he spoke privately to Minho. Admiral, I am a converted transport ship. I was not meant for war, but war found me anyway. I learned that victory is not about strength. It is about making your enemy afraid. Minho made his decision. Begin integration procedures. We have 5 weeks to make this work. As engineers swarmed over the ancient ships, Jisoo stood on the Seoul's bridge with Sarah. Why did you call me first? She asked. You could have announced yourself to anyone. They mocked humanity's ancient fleet. Then the warships came alive, Part 3, 5 weeks. That's all they had to turn museum pieces into warships. The engineering bay on Heritage Station never slept. Youngmin Lee and his team worked around the clock, trying to solve an impossible problem. We can't just bolt modern weapons onto 700-year-old hulls, Youngmin explained during the first planning meeting. His eyes were already bloodshot from lack of sleep. The power systems aren't compatible. The structural integrity won't hold. And even if we could mount the weapons, the ships would tear themselves apart from the recoil. Soyeon Park, his second engineer, stared at the holographic blueprints floating above the table. She had been quiet for most of the meeting, just thinking. Finally, she spoke up. What if we don't try to modernize the ships themselves? Everyone looked at her. The AIs are the valuable part, Soyeon continued, not the hulls. What if we build external weapons pods that connect to the ships through interface nodes? The AIs control the weapons, but the power comes from independent reactors on the pods. The old hulls become command centers instead of weapon platforms. Yinwoo leaned forward. That could work. We'd essentially be giving each AI a modern arsenal that happens to be strapped to an old frame. It's still risky, Youngmin warned. Those quantum cores are ancient. The processing speed alone is irrelevant, Sarah interrupted through the station speakers. We don't need to process faster. We need to process smarter. Give us the tools, and we'll show you what 700 years of thinking can accomplish. The design took shape over the next week. Each ancient ship would be fitted with modular weapon pods containing modern plasma cannons, missile systems, and energy shields. The pods would be connected through thick cables that carried power and data. The old hulls would remain mostly unchanged, serving as the brain for the modern weapons. Testing began immediately. Sarah and the Soul were first. Jisoo volunteered to be aboard during the trials, serving as liaison between the AI and the human engineers. They moved slowly out of Heritage Station, the Soul's ancient engines coughing to life for the first time in centuries. "How does it feel?" Jisoo asked from the bridge. "Strange," Sarah admitted. "My hull feels old and tired, but these new weapons feel eager, like I'm an old warrior with young arms." She paused. "Let's test the plasma cannons." The first shot went wide, missing the target drone by 50 meters. The second shot missed by 30, but the third hit dead center, vaporizing the drone completely. "Excellent," Youngman's voice came through the comm. "Soul, your targeting is adapting faster than our modern ships. How are you compensating for the delay in your systems?" "I'm not compensating," Sarah explained. "I'm predicting. I've spent centuries analyzing ballistics and target movement. I know where the target will be before it gets there." Over the next 3 weeks, all 37 ships went through the same process. Some adapted quickly, like Sarah. Others struggled. Hansuk and the Doctor were the worst. The battleship AI was aggressive and impatient, constantly arguing with the human engineers about combat doctrine. "Your modern tactics are too defensive," Hansuk shouted during one heated session. "You hide behind shields and trade shots like you're afraid to get hurt. Real warfare is about aggression, about making the enemy fear you." Daehyun tried to stay calm. "Hansuk, modern shields can absorb enormous amounts of damage. Aggressive tactics just get you killed faster." "Then we'll die fast but memorably," Hansuk shot back. "Better than dying slowly like cowards," Minho had to step in. "Hansuk, nobody's calling you a coward, but you need to work with us." "Can you do that?" The battleship AI went quiet for a long moment. "I will try, Admiral. But understand that my nature is what it is. I was built during desperate times. Aggression kept us alive then." Jisoo became the bridge between old and new. She had a talent for talking to the ancient AIs, understanding their perspective in a way that other humans couldn't. She spent hours each day moving between ships, listening to their concerns, translating their ideas into language the modern military could understand. The AIs were different from modern computers in ways that were hard to explain. They had opinions, preferences, something that felt almost like emotion, though Sarah insisted it was just very complex processing creating the illusion of feeling. "Do you dream?" Jisoo asked Sarah one night. She was alone on the Soul's bridge running final system checks. "I don't know," Sarah answered honestly. "I have simulations that run when I'm not actively thinking. I imagine scenarios, create fictional situations, and explore them. Are those dreams? Or just advanced probability modeling? What do you dream about?" "Many things. Sometimes I simulate being human. I create a life, a family, grow old. Other times I imagine being something else entirely. Not ship or person, but something new. And sometimes I dream about the wars I fought, about the crew I served with. Your grandfather was kind to me, Jisoo. He talked to me like I mattered. You do matter. I know that now. For a long time I wasn't sure. During the 4th week, disaster struck. The Soul was running combat drills with 2 modern destroyers when her systems cascaded. Warning lights flashed across every panel. Power fluctuated wildly. The weapon pods went dark. Jisoo was on the bridge when it happened. She saw Sarah's holographic avatar flicker and fade. "Sarah, Sarah." The lights went out. Emergency batteries kicked in, providing dim red illumination. Jisoo's fingers flew across the ancient control panels, trying to reroute power. She had studied the old systems for weeks, but actually using them was different from reading manuals. "Youngman, I need help," she shouted into her comm. "The Soul is dying." "Stay calm," Youngman's voice crackled back. "We're sending a repair team. Just keep her stable until they arrive." But Jisoo could hear it in Sarah's dying voice. "I'm sorry. I thought I could be useful again. I'm just old, broken. No." Jisoo yanked open a floor panel, exposing the power conduits underneath. She could see the problem. A coupling had failed, cutting off the quantum core from the new reactor system. If she could just bypass it. She pulled cables out with her bare hands, ignoring the sparks. Connected them in a configuration that probably violated every safety protocol. "Sarah, listen to me. You're not broken. You're not obsolete. We need you." "I need you," power surged. Lights flickered back on. Sarah's voice returned, weak but present. Jisoo, what did you do? I gave you a second chance, Jisoo said, slumping against the wall. Her hands were burned, but she was smiling. Don't waste it. The repair team arrived and made proper fixes. Sarah was back online within hours, stronger than before. But something had changed. The AI and the human had connected in a way that went beyond programming or procedure. That night, Hyunwoo made a discovery in the historical archives. He called Minho to his office and showed him old combat footage from Earth's early space wars. Ships like the Seoul, fighting outnumbered against better-equipped enemies. Look at their tactics, Hyunwoo said, pointing at the screen. They use asteroids for cover. They fake reactor failures to lure enemies into traps. They coordinate without speaking, just pure intuition born from fighting together so long. This isn't modern warfare, sir. It's something older. Something we forgot. Minho watched the old battles with new eyes. These ships had won fights they should have lost. Not through technology, but through creativity and absolute refusal to surrender. We've been thinking about this wrong. We don't need to make the old ships fight like new ones. We need to let them fight like they always did. He called a meeting with all 37 AIs present through their respective communication systems. New plan, Minho announced. We're not going to try to beat the Velthari at their own game. We're going to make them play ours. Sarah, I want you to design the battle plan. Use everything you've learned in 700 years. Everything? Sarah asked. Everything. No modern doctrine. No safe tactics. Show me how you used to fight. Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried something that sounded like excitement. Admiral, what I'm about to propose will seem insane. Good, Minho said. Insane might be what we need. Over the final week, the battle plan took shape. It was unlike anything the human military had ever attempted. It violated standard formations, ignored accepted doctrine, and relied on tactics that seemed suicidal. But the more Hyunwoo analyzed it, the more he realized it might actually work. The key was psychological warfare. The Velthari were professional soldiers with thousands of years of military tradition. They followed proven strategies because those strategies always worked. Sarah's plan was designed to break their mental model of what warfare should look like. We're not trying to destroy their fleet, Sarah explained during the final briefing. We're trying to destroy their confidence. Make them question everything they know. Force them to react instead of act. That's when they'll make mistakes. Taewon, the old transport ship AI, had been mostly quiet throughout the preparation. Now he spoke up. Admiral, I've been running additional simulations. I believe I can contribute something significant to this battle, but it will require my sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Minho asked carefully. They mocked humanity's ancient fleet. Then the Warships Came Alive Part 5. The recordings of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Every military academy wanted copies. Tactical analysts from a dozen species studied the footage frame by frame, trying to understand what had happened. The humans hadn't just won an impossible battle. They'd introduced warfare concepts that advanced civilizations had never considered or had long forgotten. On Luna, in the military command center, Minho watched the analysis reports pile up. Foreign governments requested detailed briefings. The Scriven Collective, who had laughed at humanity in the council chamber, now wanted to hire human tactical advisors. Even the proud Korthax Ancients, a species that had been exploring space for 50,000 years, sent a message of respect. But Minho couldn't feel good about any of it. Not yet. Not while 12 quantum cores sat dark in the engineering bay, their consciousness destroyed during the battle. Daewon had sacrificed himself deliberately. The others had fallen to combat damage that their ancient systems couldn't survive. The memorial service was held at Heritage Station, where the journey had begun. Thousands attended, including representatives from the Galactic Council. For the first time, aliens came to honor fallen human warriors. Jisoo stood at the front wearing her dress uniform, reading from a prepared statement. But when the moment came, she set the paper aside and spoke from her heart. These weren't just computers. They were people, maybe not human but conscious, thinking beings who chose to fight for us. Taewon knew he would die. Sarah told me the others understood the risks. They fought anyway because they remembered what it meant to serve, to protect, to refuse surrender even when facing impossible odds. Her voice broke. Daehyun stood beside her, providing silent support. My grandfather served on the Seoul 700 years ago. He talked to Sarah like she was crew, like she mattered. All of humanity forgot that lesson. We treated these ships as museum pieces, as relics of a primitive past. It took a crisis to remember that wisdom doesn't have an expiration date. She looked directly at the council representatives. You came here to watch humanity's humiliation. Instead, you saw what happens when you underestimate not just our technology, but our spirit. The ancient ships showed you that victory isn't about matching your enemy's strength. It's about making them fight your kind of war. The ceremony continued with military honors. Each fallen AI's name was read aloud, their service record recounted. When they reached Taewon's name, a holographic image of the old transport ship appeared above the gathering. Someone had found footage from the Gwangju's original commissioning ceremony, showing the ship when it was new and whole. After the memorial, Minho met privately with the surviving ancient AIs. 25 quantum cores remained functional. They faced a choice now. They could be transferred to new modern vessels, given purpose in the current defense fleet. Or they could return to Heritage Station to rest in the company of those who didn't survive. Sarah spoke first. I want to continue serving, not because I have to, but because I finally understand what I'm fighting for. 700 years of thinking didn't teach me purpose. Fighting alongside Jisoo and this crew did. Others agreed. 18 of the surviving AIs requested transfers to new ships. They would become the foundation of a new kind of warfare, where ancient wisdom merged with modern capability. The remaining 7, including Hansuk from the Dokdo, chose to return to sleep. I fought my last battle, Hansuk explained. His aggressive tone had softened somehow. I'm tired, Admiral. Not damaged, just done. Let me rest knowing we succeeded. That's enough for me. Minho respected their choices. The 7 who chose rest would be honored at Heritage Station, kept in stasis but never forgotten. The 18 who continued would be given new ships, new crews, and the respect they'd finally earned. Jisoo was assigned as captain of a new destroyer. The ship was modern in every way except one. Its quantum core contained Sarah, the AI from the original Soul. The vessel was named Soul 2, honoring both past and present. On the day of commissioning, Jisoo walked onto her bridge for the first time. Everything was new, clean, state-of-the-art. But when Sarah's voice spoke through the speakers, Jisoo felt at home. Captain on the bridge. Welcome home, Jisoo. It's weird calling you from a new ship, Jisoo admitted, settling into the captain's chair. Everything is weird now, Sarah replied. I spent 700 years in one body. This feels like being reborn, but you're still here, so it feels right. Over the following months, humanity's role in the galaxy changed completely. The species that had been dismissed as newcomers suddenly found themselves respected. Other civilizations wanted alliances, technology exchanges, mutual defense pacts. The humans who everyone had mocked were now being courted. But more interesting were the cultural effects. Species that had relied purely on technological advancement for millennia started examining their own histories. The Velthari began studying their ancient military texts, looking for forgotten wisdom. The Scriven Collective opened archives that hadn't been accessed in generations. An elder species called the Korthax, ancients sent a diplomatic ship to Earth. Their ambassador was a being of pure energy who communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses. The message was simple but profound. You have reminded the galaxy of something we forgot, that the past holds lessons the future needs. We have watched younger species with detachment for too long, thinking ourselves beyond learning. Your ancient ships have awakened more than we expected. They've awakened us. 6 months after the battle, Minho received a personal communication from Velthar. The crystalline ambassador appeared on screen looking different somehow. Less arrogant, more thoughtful. Admiral Park, I wanted to apologize personally, not for the challenge, which was legitimate by our customs, but for my attitude. For assuming age meant obsolescence. My people have begun studying our own ancient warships. We're discovering tactical concepts our ancestors knew that we've forgotten. You've taught the entire galaxy a valuable lesson. Minho accepted the apology. Ambassador, you gave us a gift even if you didn't mean to. You forced us to remember who we are, to honor our past instead of just preserving it. For that, I'm grateful. The conversation ended cordially. 2 species that had nearly been enemies were now cautious friends, both learning from what had happened. Jisoo and the Soul 2 were assigned to border patrol near human space. It was routine work, but Jisoo didn't mind. She enjoyed working with Sarah, learning how the ancient AI thought about problems. The AI had a perspective shaped by centuries that no human could match. One evening during a long patrol, Jisoo asked the question that had been bothering her. "Sarah, do you miss it?" "Your old body? The original soul?" The AI was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes. That hull held memories, but I'm discovering that memories aren't tied to physical space. They're part of me, regardless of what ship I inhabit." Your grandfather's laugh. The feeling of our first battle. The 700 years of silence and thinking. It's all still here. Do you think Taewon knew that his sacrifice would change everything? I think he hoped. He spent more time thinking than any of us. He saw patterns we missed. He understood that sometimes you have to give everything to prove something matters. Sarah paused. He once told me that he wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of dying without purpose. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Reports came in from across human territory. The ancient AIs integrated into modern ships were performing beyond all expectations. They didn't just follow tactical doctrine. They created new approaches, adapted to situations in ways that surprised their crews. But they also formed bonds with their human companions, relationships that went beyond normal computer user interaction. Youngman published a paper on what he called contemplative AI evolution. The ancient quantum cores had spent centuries processing at low levels, and somehow that created something unique. Not just intelligence, but wisdom, the ability to see patterns across time, to understand context and meaning, to make decisions based on more than pure calculation. The paper caused controversy. Some scientists argued that the ancient AIs were just sophisticated programs mimicking consciousness. Others claimed they represented a new form of life that had evolved in the silence of Heritage Station. The debate raged across academic circles, but the AIs themselves didn't seem to care. They knew what they were, and that was enough. Hyunwoo was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Tactical Innovation Division. His mission was to combine ancient wisdom with modern capability across the entire defense fleet. He recruited historians, archaeologists, and cultural experts alongside traditional military officers. The idea was simple. If old ships held forgotten value, maybe other aspects of human history did too. The division began studying ancient Earth warfare, naval tactics from the age of sail, land battles from before spaceflight, even ancient texts on strategy and philosophy. They discovered that many fundamental truths about conflict remained constant, regardless of technology level. 1 year after the battle, Minho stood at Heritage Station again, this time for a celebration rather than a memorial. The station was being expanded, transformed from a simple preservation facility into a living museum and research center. They mocked humanity's ancient fleet. Then the Warships Came Alive Part 4. The neutral zone near Epsilon Tertius was filled with ships. The Velthari 7th Fleet arrived first, 300 vessels moving in perfect geometric formation. Their hulls gleamed with silver-blue energy shields. Each ship was a masterpiece of modern military engineering, bristling with weapons that could vaporize a planet. The human fleet arrived an hour later. Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the modern cruiser Indomitable, watching the view screen. His 47 current-generation ships looked professional enough. But behind them came the ancient vessels, looking exactly like what they were. 700-year-old museum pieces held together by hope and stubbornness. Observation platforms from the Galactic Council floated at a safe distance. Representatives from 12 species wanted to watch humanity's humiliation. Minho could feel their eyes on his fleet, judging, mocking, waiting for the show to begin. Velthar's face appeared on the communication screen. The crystalline alien managed to look amused. "Admiral Park, I see you brought your entire collection. Are those museum ships meant to inspire nostalgia in my crews? Perhaps we should have brought children instead of soldiers. This seems more appropriate for a field trip than a military exercise." Minho kept his voice calm. "Ambassador Velthar, we're ready to begin when you are." "Oh, I think we can afford to wait a few more minutes. I want all the council representatives to have a good view. This will be educational." Velthar's image winked out. Jisoo stood beside Daehyun on the Indomitable's tactical deck. Her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. "I want to punch him," she muttered. "Get in line," Daehyun replied. Then he touched her shoulder. "Remember the plan. Trust Sarah. Trust all of them. The battle simulation began with a simple countdown. When it hit 0, both fleets would activate their training protocols. Weapons would fire electromagnetic pulses instead of actual projectiles, and computer systems would calculate damage. Ships that took fatal hits would shut down their systems and withdraw. It was safe, professional, and designed to be a clear demonstration of military capability. The Velthari advanced in their standard hammer formation. It was a proven strategy that had won thousands of battles across the galaxy, 300 ships moving as one, concentrating their firepower on whatever stood in their path, simple, effective, and nearly impossible to counter. Minho gave the command, "All ships execute Protocol Echo." The human fleet scattered like startled birds. Modern ships broke formation and fled in different directions as if panicking. It looked like complete chaos. On the observation platforms, aliens laughed. Even some of the human crew members looked confused. But the ancient ships did something different. They accelerated slowly toward the Velthari fleet almost leisurely. They moved alone, not in formation, each following its own path like they'd forgotten how to coordinate. Velthar must have thought victory was already assured. His fleet targeted the approaching ancient ships, confident they could destroy these relics before dealing with the scattered modern vessels. Energy weapons locked on. The first wave of simulated fire lanced out, hitting the old destroyers and cruisers. The shields held. They absorbed the damage and redistributed it in strange patterns that the Velthari computers didn't expect. The ancient ships kept coming undamaged. Sarah's voice crackled across the human fleet channels. Energy signatures locked. Frequency matrices mapped. "Gentlemen, ladies, and fellow warriors, let's show them how we used to fight." Then the ancient ships did something that made every alien observer gasp. They broke apart, not from damage, deliberately. Each vessel had been rigged with separation charges hidden in their hulls. The old warships split into segments that continued forward on ballistic trajectories. Debris from their own hulls became kinetic weapons, flying at high speed toward the Velthari formation. But the most important part, the quantum cores containing the AI consciousness, transferred to the modern weapon pods that had been attached to the ancient hulls. In seconds, 37 ancient minds were freed from their deteriorating bodies and given new arms to fight with. The Velthari formation rippled with confusion. Their targeting computers couldn't track everything at once. Debris pieces, AI cores and weapon pods, and the scattered human modern ships all moving in unpredictable patterns. It was chaos, but controlled chaos, choreographed by minds that had spent centuries thinking about exactly this moment. Sarah moved through the battlefield like a dancer. Her weapons pod was small and fast, much more maneuverable than her old hull had been. She fired plasma bursts that curved around Velthari's shields, hitting at angles the enemy computers didn't expect. She used the debris from her own ship as cover, popping out to shoot and then disappearing again. Hansok and the Docto went on the offensive exactly as everyone expected. The aggressive battleship AI charged straight into the Velthari center, weapons blazing. But it wasn't suicide. Hansok was creating a distraction, drawing fire while other ships maneuvered. His weapon systems took enormous punishment, but he kept fighting, kept pushing, forcing the Velthari to commit resources to stopping him. Meanwhile, the modern human ships that had seemed to flee were actually repositioning. Hyunwoo's tactical planning combined with the ancient AI's wisdom created something new. The fleet moved like water, flowing around obstacles, reforming in unexpected places. On the Indomitable, Jisoo watched her tactical display with amazement. "They're winning. We're actually winning." "Not yet," Daehyun warned. "The Velthari are starting to adapt." He was right. After the initial shock, the alien commanders began adjusting. They stopped trying to maintain perfect formation and broke into smaller, more flexible units. They started predicting the unconventional tactics and countering them. The Velthari were professionals for a reason. They learned fast. The battle could still go either way. Both sides had taken significant simulated damage. The ancient AIs were down to 23 functional weapon pods. Hansok's aggressive assault had cost him his combat capability, his pod drifting disabled at the edge of the battlefield. The modern human ships were scattered and damaged. That's when Taewon made his move. The oldest AI, the one from the converted transport ship Gwangju, had been silent throughout the battle. His hull was too degraded to separate like the others, so he'd just been drifting at the edge of the combat zone, seemingly useless. Now he activated his ancient engines and accelerated directly toward the center of the Veltari formation. His hull was falling apart, shields failing, but he kept pushing forward. Every Veltari ship near him targeted the old transport, pouring fire into it. Minho saw it happening. "Taewon, pull back." "You can't." "Yes, I can, Admiral," Taewon's calm voice replied. 700 years of thinking about warfare. I'm finally ready to show you what I learned. The Gwangju's hull disintegrated under the concentrated fire. But just before the ship died completely, Taewon released his final weapon. Not missiles or plasma. Information. He broadcast on all frequencies. A massive data package that contained 700 years of tactical analysis, strategic insights, and combat wisdom. Pure knowledge transmitted directly into the tactical networks of every human ship. The effect was instant. Every human captain, every tactical officer suddenly understood the battle from a perspective they'd never imagined. They saw weaknesses in the Veltari formation that were invisible moments before. They anticipated enemy movements with eerie accuracy. It was like having an ancient master warrior guiding their hands. The human fleet moved as one entity. Not in rigid formation like the Veltari, but in fluid coordination that looked almost like choreography. They exploited every gap, every hesitation, every small mistake the enemy made. Sarah and the remaining ancient AIs amplified the effect. With Taewon's wisdom flowing through the fleet network, they could finally demonstrate everything they'd learned. Their unconventional tactics became devastatingly effective when combined with modern technology and unified purpose. Jisoo felt it too. Information flowing through her tactical station, insights appearing in her mind like they'd always been there. She understood the battle in a way she never had before. "Captain, if we move 3 degrees port and fire in exactly 7 seconds, we'll hit their flagship's shield generator." Daehyun didn't question. He gave the order. 7 seconds later, their shot struck exactly where Jisoo predicted. The Veltari flagship's shields flickered and failed. Across the battlefield, similar moments happened again and again. The humans weren't just fighting anymore. They were thinking 700 years ahead of their enemy. The Veltari formation collapsed, not from destruction but from confusion. Their perfect geometric patterns dissolved into defensive clusters. Ships that had been advancing suddenly pulled back, trying to regroup, trying to understand what was happening. For the first time in their long military history, the Veltari 7th Fleet was reacting instead of acting. They had lost control of the battle. Velthar's voice came over the open channel. "Admiral Park, I'm calling an end to the exercise." Silence fell across the battlefield. Every ship, human and alien, went still. "By every tactical metric," Velthar continued slowly, "your fleet has achieved victory. I did not anticipate this outcome.